Hello, this is Zach, and in this video I'm going to be showing an example of an interactive application that utilizes CRUD operations. So CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete, and these are basically different operations that we're going to be performing on a file. So we're going to be creating records, reading records, updating records, and deleting records, and I'm going to be doing this with operations using RPGLE. And I'm going to make a second part of this video to show how we can do credit operations using SQL, which is more of a modern way of doing it. So first I'm going to start by creating a physical file, and then I'm going to create a display file, and then we will get to making the RPG program that controls the application. So I'm going to start in green screen so that it can show me where the columns are for my physical file and display file. Right now, Visual Studio Code isn't great with showing the spacing for columns for physical file and display file, so that's the reason why I'm using green screen at first. So I'm going to do work member PDM. I'm going to create my physical file, so making sure I'm in my QDDS source file, press F6, and then I will call this CRUD PF, and this is a physical file. So I'll put type PF, and then I'll leave the description as blank for now. And so the first thing I'm going to want to do is specify that I want this to be unique. So this means that when I identify a keyed value, that keyed value is going to be unique, and there can't be any duplicates of that within the file. So with this example, I'm going to be creating fields that are going to be used to like describe an employee. So I'll have like a first name, a last name, middle initial, social security number, birth date, and a job description. So just some basic fields that we'll be able to do our CRUD operations on. So the next thing that I'm going to need is my record format name. So I will call this CRUD rec, and then I'm going to do one more line. Oops, I forgot my A. I'm going to do one more line to create a field. So this will be first name, and then I need to see where my length goes. We'll make it length 15 and a character data type. And now that I have that spacing, I'm going to do file to save this, and then I'm going to jump over to VS Code. And in VS Code, I'm going to go to my object browser and hit the drop down on the library I'm using, go into the DDS source file, and I have my CRUD PF right here. So I'm going to pull this up, and we'll keep going in here. So I'm going to copy and go to the next line. So we'll do last name, and I'll do the same length and type. Next, I'm going to do a middle initial, and this will be a length of 1 since it's just an initial, and it'll be a character. Oops, it auto-filled the 15. And next, we'll do the SSN. So I'll put SSN here, and then this will be a length. This will be 9 digits, and we'll make it a zoned with 0 decimals. After that, we will do the birth date, and we're going to make this a date, so it's just an L as a type. Oops, just want an L there. And then lastly, we'll do a job description, and this can be, we'll make it a length of 20 and a character. And then lastly, we will specify our keyed value, so we'll put a K here, and we want our SSN to be our keyed value. So once we have all that, that's all we're going to need for our physical file. So I'll save that with Control S, go up, and we can create our physical file. Hit enter, and we successfully created our physical file. Great. Now we can go and do our display file. So I'm going to jump back over to green screen to start this off again so that I have my prompter for getting my columns. So I'm going to hit F6 to create another source, and this one will be the display file. So I'll do CRUD ds pf, and then this is a display file, and I'll leave the text blank for now. So first I want to specify that I want an indicator data area. So I'll go and prompt this and do Indera. And I went into more detail describing some of these concepts in a previous video where I created a simple interactive application. So if you're looking for a more in-depth description of some of this stuff, then I recommend looking at that. And then I'm also going to do our make it so we can use our F keys. So I'll do CF03 so we can use the F3 key, link that to indicator 3, and this will be for F3 equals exit. And then I'm gonna have more of those, but I'm just gonna do the record format name now. And so this will be, I'll just call this main screen. Oh, I said K. This needs to be R. And then I'm just going to do one of our fields. So I'll say our option that our user is going to pick for our what operation they want to do for the CRUD. So this will be a length of 1, and it'll be a zoned. Oops. It'll be a zoned, and then it's going to be in position 7 or line 7, position 11, and that's all. Oh, and we also want it to have 0 decimal places and used for both input and output. So that should be good for that. And then I'm going to put one title just so I have the spacing for that as well. So on line 2, position 25, I'm going to say work with data. And that should be good. So now that I have all that, I have all the columns that I'll need so I can go over to VS Code and finish creating this. So I'm going to type file to save that. Then we'll jump to VS Code. We'll refresh our object browser and we'll see our display file pop up. Great. And I can also split my screen so I can look at both of them at the same time if I wanted to do that. So that when I'm creating my fields, I can match up my type and my data types and lengths and things like that. So now I'm going to finish with my title. So we have work with data, and then I'm going to want to tell the user what they can choose. So I'm on line 4, position 19, and I've worked out these lines and positions ahead of time. They're not perfect, but I did plan that out already, so I'm not just guessing where it, where it should go. So I'm going to say choose one of the, and then I'm going to do a plus sign to move to the next line and finish out my phrase. Choose one of the following, and then I'm going to close that. Choose one of the following, and then I'm going to say they can choose one of our CRUD operations. So I'll say line 519. We'll say create is equal to 1. We'll say read is equal to 2. And then we'll move to the next line. Say update is equal to 3. And then we'll say delete is equal to 4. And there. That's the title that we'll want. And we also want to give some text for our option. So we'll say on line 7, right before our field for option, we'll say option, just to label that. Great, and we can take a peek at what our screen's going to look like so far. So we have work with data, choose one of the following, our CRUD operations, and then this is where they'll enter 1, 2, 3, or 4. So, and since we're going to be looking at a file, we're going to want to be able to select a specific record. So we want to specify, we want to give a spot where we can enter an SSN, since that's going to be a unique value, since that's keyed and it's unique in our physical file, we can use it to search for specific records. So I'm going to say on the next line, search by SSN. And then we will define a field called SSN search, and this will be a length of 9, zoned, node, decimal. It's going to be both input and output just in case we want to use it in that way, and we'll put it in position 18. And now so now we'll put some lines for messages in case we want to um, inform the user of something like a invalid entry or an error or something like that. So we'll just create 2 message lines. So it'll just be a length of 60, um, and it's going to be an output field. The user's not going to need to input anything. We'll just put it on line 10, position 10. I'm going to copy it and drop it down, change it to 2, change this to 11. And then we want to show the user that they can use their F3 key. So I'm going to create another bit of text on the screen that says F3 equals exit, and that shows the user that they can use the F3 key to leave the program. So we have our spot for entering the option and the SSN, so that's great. So now I'm going to create another one of these so that we can use our F12 key, and this will be to cancel. So this is going to be to back up one screen. So instead of having this all capital, I'm going to change it to just be lowercase. That's not really important, but oops. So all we're going to need is one more screen for our CRUD operations, because we're going to put all of the fields on this screen, and then depending on the operation, we're going to allow the user to type into these fields, or we're going to protect them so that the user can't type into them. So for example, with the create, we're going to want them to enter fields, so they're going to be unprotected, and we'll underline the spots where we're going to want them to type. And then if we're just reading, we're not going to want them to be able to write any new information into those fields, so we're going to protect them. And I'll show you what I mean now. So I'm going to create the next screen. So we'll do record format, and I'll just call this CRUD screen. That might not be the best name, but that's what we're going with. And I'm also going to create some more, I'm going to allow the user to have more function keys. So we're going to do CF, and I'm going to do 5, and this one's going to be used for F5 is equal to add. So this will be used when they want to create a record. They'll press F5 to save that. CF06. This will be used for the user to update. So we'll say F3 or F6 is equal to update. And then lastly, we need one more for delete. So CF07 equals F7 equals delete. There we go. Now we'll put all of our fields, but first I'm going to put at the top of the screen what mode we're in. So when we get here, the user is going to enter an option, and then I'm going to put what mode they entered, just so they know in case somehow they forget in the time that they go to the next screen. And this will be on, we'll just put it, well, I guess here, let me put, this will be on position 32, but let's put our title on here first. So first thing I want to do is the title, 225, and this will say enter user information. Or I'm just going to say work with user data. That's a better description of what's happening. And then we'll have the mode. So I'm going to put a title for the mode, 326, and this will say mode. And then the next thing we have is our mode. This needs to be capitalized. So as of now, work with user data, and it'll say create, read, update, or delete mode. And the next thing we can do is start typing out our user fields. So I'm going to say on line 5, position 5, that this is going to be for the first name. And then we'll say user FN length of 15, a character, both input and output, and then we're going to do 522. And then for the next part, we are going to do our display attributes. So this is where we're going to be able to protect and underline our field. And I'll pull up some IBMI documentation to show this. So we can use our display attribute to specify one or more display attributes for the field that we're defining. So in our case, we're going to be using the underline, and we're going to be using the protect. So when we protect a field, it's going to protect the contents of the field from any input typing. So we're not going to be able to type over it, and then if we underline it, obviously it will show an underline. And in this documentation, probably an example at the bottom. Yeah, so this shows how it can be used. So if you needed to look at that, you can look at that as well. So that's a good bit of documentation you can look at if you're wanting to find more ways to use that. Um, so what I'm going to be doing now is, and we can also control these with an indicator. So I'm going to be controlling this with the indicator 40. So when this is on, we will protect our field, DSPATR, and then PR was the code for that. And then I'm going to underline this when we're not protecting the field. So we're negating our indicator and saying when that's on, this will be off, and vice versa. And this was UL for underline. So when we're protecting a field, it's not going to be underlined. But when we are not protecting a field, we can give it the underline. So that's kind of the formula of how we're going to do these. And so now we can just kind of follow the same pattern along the next few ones. I'm just going to copy this because this is going to be very similar. This will just be last name. It's going to be the same length, but on a new line. And I'll need this. And we can use we can use the same indicators for these fields, last name. And then this will be a 6. Next one is going to be our middle initial. User, middle initial. This is going to be a length of 1. Both on 7 and 5. I forgot. Then we can just copy our display attributes. And then the next one is our SSN. So this will be user SSN. This is going to be 9-digit zoned, no decimals, both input and output. Line 8, position 5. This needs to be 22. I just realized. So the spacing is right. And then I also want, I'm putting this in the wrong spot. This needs to be a 22. And then the name goes above it, 8. And then I'll just say that this is the SSN. And I'm going to give this its own indicator because since the SSN is our keyed value, it always needs to be unique. So I'm going to not allow the user to update the SSN once they create it. So once they create their record with their social security number, I'm not going to allow them to change it to avoid any errors by trying to update an SSN with a duplicate value. So I'm going to always protect it once we do the create. So I'm going to use a different indicator to be able to handle that. And next, we'll have our birth date. So on 9/5, birth date. And then I'll copy this. Well, I don't need to copy that. User, and then we'll just say birth. This is a date type, so we need an L there. It needs to be both input and output, and then we're on line 9/22. Oops. And then we will use our same display attributes with indicator 40. And then the last thing we have is our job description. Almost done with the boring part, in my opinion, the boring part at least. So this is going to be the job description. And then we can say user job D. And this was a 20, oops, character, and it's both input and output. And this is on line 10, position 21. Sweet. And we can copy our display attributes. And then lastly, I'm going to put our function keys at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to write some text on line 20, position 20, and say that F3 equals exit, and then F12 is for cancel. This is to back up one screen. And then on the line below that, I'm going to show whatever function key we're allowing them to use for that specific CRUD whatever option they've chosen. We're going to show them the function key that is linked to that. So we're going to say this is a text, or this is a string of length 10, and then both input and or this is just going to be for outputs because we don't need them to input anything. And then I'm going to do a +1. And so this is going to put this into position. It's going to put one space in between the end of this line and our function. So it's kind of a way of dynamically doing that. And so the only thing that's annoying with using the +1 is that in our preview, it's not going to put it in the right position. It shows it at the top here when it really is going to be down here. But other than that, oh, and I didn't put job description in the right spot. This should be 22. Now everything should be, once it saves, everything should be lined up, and we should be all set to start writing our RPG program. We have our first, last, middle, SSN, birthday, and job description, and it looks like our display file is all set up. I will attempt to create it and see if there's any issues. There is an issue. Oh, I put a Z instead of an S. Not S is for zoned, not Z. Okay, sorry, that was an issue. Hopefully you caught that as we were going along. And I'm going to create the display file again. That should hopefully be the only thing. There we go. Now we've created our display file. Now we can go and make our RPG program. So I'm going to go to our object browser and do new member, and then we can call this CRUD pugum.rpgle. That'll create a new member, and it's going to open it up as well. So I'm going to move our display file over to the right side, and we can start doing this. So I'm going to do ** free, say we want fully free program, and then the first thing we can start doing is declaring our files. So I'm going to declare my workstation, which is the CRUD display file, DSPF, and this is a workstation. And then I'm also going to say we want to use an indicator data structure, and I'll name this indicators. And this is so that we can name our indicators that we're using. So we never want to just use numbered indicators. Declare, and then now we're going to declare our physical file. So this will be CRUD.pf, and this is a disk, and this is keyed. And the usage for this defaults to input, I believe, but what we want is input, output, delete, and update. So we're going to specify the usage as input, and then we're going to say output, update, and delete, so that we can do all of those operations. And then I'm going to rename our record format. It was CRUD, it was CRUD rec, and then I'll rename it to CRUD rec 1. And then we'll end with a semicolon. Now we can create our indicator data structure. So I'll do declare data structure, and this was called indicators and data structure. So we have exit, we'll name that for our third indicator that we're using with the F3 key, and this is in position 3, and we'll initialize that. And then we also have cancel, indicator in position 12, initialize that. And then we also have our add, update, and delete. So we have add rec, which is an indicator in position 5, initialize. And then we have update rec, which was our F6 key. So we'll use the 6th indicator. And then we had delete rec with F7. So we'll put this in position 7, initialize it. And then we also had our indicator 40 and 41. This was to protect fields. So we'll say that is the name. And this was for 40, initialize that. And then we will protect the SSN with indicator 41, position 41, initialize that. There we go. These should be all the indicators that we're going to need for our program. And it's always the best practice to name them so that we're not just using a bunch of numbered indicators and then later on probably we'll just end up forgetting what I ended up using them for and it'd be more confusing. So it's always good just to do that. So now we can start with our main procedure. So I'll comment that and say main, and then I'll just do last rec indicator last record equals on, and then return. I'll do that so that I don't forget to end the program. And then, so this is going to be very similar to the previous interactive application that I showed how to make, and we're going to use a do-while loop to loop over our main screen. And so I'm going to say do while the user does not enter exit. So while the user doesn't enter F3, we will continue our application. And so I'll say end do, and the first thing I'll do is display the main screen. And so we'll execute format, it was main screen, main screen. And then after that, we will want to clear any possible messages that we had on that screen, like errors. So I'm going to say clear messages. So message line 1, we'll set that equal to a blank. And then we'll do the same for message line 2. Oops. And then we'll also want to set all of our fields to a default value. So I'll set fields to default values. I also want to set my function back to blank. So whatever F5, F6, F7 was on the screen, we'll reset that back to blank. Okay, so now we'll set all of our all of our display fields back to 0, or whatever their default value should be. So we'll do user ln, and I'll actually show something that could make this a little bit faster. So when we're inputting the same code, what we can do is press Control Alt and then the down arrow, and we can move our cursor onto multiple lines. And so I can type the same thing on 2 lines. So that's kind of a way to speed things up instead of typing it out individually if you know you're going to be doing that. So now user SSN is equal to 0. User birth date. So this is a date. So what we want to say is equals, and then D to specify that the text coming after this is a date. And then we'll put a default date, which is this. So what our compiler is doing is saying this is a date type, and we're setting equal to a date, the date being this value. And then our user job description, we'll set that equal to a space. And that's that. Now we can go ahead and see what option they have entered. So what we'll do is say if not exit. If the user hasn't immediately pressed exit, we will continue onward. If they did, then it'll just end and our loop will end. But so what we can do is do a select statement. So select, and then what we'll do is when, for our cases, it'll just be our CRUD operation. So we'll say when user has done option 1, when option equals 1, and then when option equals 2, and then we'll oh, it's because I misspelled it. I was like, why is that happening? And so I'm going to copy this just to make it a little bit quicker. When option equals 3, oops, I pressed insert, and then option equals 4. And this first one will be our create. This will be read. 3 is for update. And 4 is for delete. So this is going to be our logic for choosing which CRUD operation we're going to be using. So we'll start out with our create. And we can also do an other, so we can say other as our default and say if there's an other, then we'll just put something like it's an invalid entry or something like that. So we'll just say I'll also do the end select here, and then this will just be 1, 2. We'll say in the message line 1 equals invalid option or something. Actually, if 1, 2, 3, or 4 isn't entered, yeah, we'll just say invalid option. And we can test this later to see if that's what we want it to say. And I'm going to go ahead and compile this just to make sure we're not making any mistakes early on. And we do have something, so function is not defined. And do well, this needs to say and if, and then our function, I'll just compile this to fix that error at the bottom. Then we'll figure out why it doesn't like that. because we have it defined over here. Let's just function equals this. Create bound. Doesn't like it. Let's put it in. Let's just put it in a position. See if that helps for some reason. 35. Create our display file and create our RPG program. Still doesn't like it. Oh, you know, it's because it's set to output, but I'm inputting into it. So what I need to do is make it that, and then we can do our +1, and then what we need to do is compile our display file first. That's always what you have. The order of doing that is display file and then RPG program. Didn't like that. It's overlapping. Why is that? Overlapping with another field. Both. Okay. So that went away, and then let's see if it likes us still. Okay, cool. So that was that. Sorry about that. Should have paid closer attention. And so I'm assuming that we're going to get an underline on that field, but we can probably turn it off with our display attribute if we want to do that. Okay, let's keep moving forward. So we've done this. Let's do our create. Let's actually do the logic for that. So now inside of our when option 1, we're going to say that the mode is equal to the text create, and that's going to show at the top of our screen. And then what we can do is we're going to control this with a loop. So we're going to say do while not exit and not cancel. And so when while the user isn't pressing that, we're going to loop over our screen so that if the user presses enter, we still are going to continue to loop over the screen because we want them to press our add, which is F5. And we'll say function is equal to F5 equals add. And then we'll end this statement and say that we'll execute our format, which is the CRUD, what is it, CRUD screen. There we go. And now that we have that, we can say that if the user presses the F5 key, rec, we can save all the values that they've entered. And if. And like I was mentioning before, we can't enter any duplicate keyed values, so we need to chain using the user social and chain our physical file, which is this, and say if it was not found, if that record was not found, we can go ahead and add it. So I'll say if found, we're going to set all of our fields in our physical file. So we'll say first name, and then I'll say this equals, oops, we'll say this equals user first name, and then last name equals user last name, and so on. There, and we have all those now. And once we have that, we are going to write these to our record format, which is CRUD, CRUD rec1, because we renamed it. And now, once we've done that, we can clear our option from the first screen. So I'll just say um, clear main screen values, and we'll say option equals 0, and then we'll say SSN. Well, we aren't entering that for this, so we don't need to do that. And then after our if, we want to leave. So we'll say here that we'll turn our cancel is equal to on, and this will back us up one screen. So once we have that, we should be all set to start creating records. So I could test that to see if we did that correctly. So I'll compile, see if we've made any more errors, and we didn't. So that was successful. So I can go to green screen, and we can call this. I'll go to the main screen, and we can say call CRUD, oh, misspelled that, whoops. And so if we press 1, we will go to our screen here. And like I said, this is underlined, which we don't really want, but we'll leave that for now and fix it later. So if I press enter, nothing's going to happen. We'll loop over our screen because we're doing a do while loop and we're waiting for one of our function keys to be entered. So I'll put my name in here. And for the SSN, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'll say I was born today, which is that. And I have a job. And then to press, so if I hit enter, we're just going to loop over our screen and our values are going to stay in those fields, which is what we want. And if I press F5, our record is going to be written. So to test that, what we can do is go to our DB2 for I extension in Visual Studio. And if we hit this cylinder for a new SQL job under the job manager, we'll start a new job. And then if we hit the Open SQL document, we can run an SQL statement. So if we select all from put our library and then our physical file, which it shows me all the ones that I have here. So I'll just pick the one that I want and end that with a semicolon, Control R to run it. And we see our record that we just created. So that's cool, right? Okay. So I'll leave that for now. And we'll go on to our next operation, which is going to be the read. So this is going to be very similar, but what we're going to want to do is protect our fields because we don't want our user to write over them. So what we'll say is mode is equal to read. And we're going to protect our fields. They're going to be turned on. And we're going to protect the SSN as well. So we're going to protect this. We could do some logic that says something like, nah, it's fine. We'll just do this. This is probably the most simple way. And then what we can do is do another do while loop. It's just going to be exactly the same. Do while not exit and not cancel. And we'll end our do. And what we're going to want to do here is chain whatever social security number that they've entered into our first screen. So we're going to chain the SSN search. And yep. So we're going to chain the SSN search because this is what we put on our first screen. And this is CRUD display RPF. And then we're going to do the same thing if found. If this record has been found in our file, we are going to execute this segment of code, which is going to display. So we're just going to display, we're just going to display our fields here. Display values to screen is the way I want to say it. So we're just going to say user first name, and then equals first name, and then user last name equals last name. It's nice that it autofills this and makes it a little bit faster, so I can just select it instead of having to type it all. Middle initial, that's a big benefit of using VS Code. Um, the SSN is next, equals SSN, user birth equals birth date, and then user job description equals job description. So we set everything to our screen, and then we are going to execute our format. Execute format CRUD screen. There we go. And once we do that, the user can just look at it, and then they can press F12 or F3 to leave. But we also want to have a case if the record isn't found. So we'll say that if this is not found, else message line 1 is equal to record not found. There we go. And then we'll turn our cancel on because we just want to go back to the main screen. So we'll just say record not found, set that to the main screen, and then we'll return to the main screen. So that's all we're really going to need for that. But we can also clear we want to clear the values off of our screen as well. Um, oh, actually that gets done after, I guess I can copy, we'll just leave this for now, but it's always best to clear our screen once we leave um, to protect the data that was there. But for now, it's fine if we just leave it just to be quick with this video. I'm just going to leave that for now. So now, after we've done that, we want to, after this, we will, if this, so after this, I can go ahead and set our values back. So we'll clear main screen values. And what we also want to do is, so should I do this after, and we'll just put it here, I guess. So I want to turn these back off because I don't need to keep them protected anymore. Off, oops, off. And then after that, we can actually clear our main screen values. So option equals 0, and then SSN search is equal to 0. There. And let's go ahead and test that. Save, and once that saves, we can create our bound RPG program, and we didn't have errors this time. So we'll go to, oh, we still had this open. I don't want to compile it while it's already running, so compile that again real quick, and we'll call this, and now we can read. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hit enter, and now we're displaying our fields. And notice that if I try to type over them, it says that this is a protected area. So we can't type over any of these. And we especially can't type over SSN. And we're not setting this yet, so let's actually go ahead and remember to do that. At the top here, so where did I do it? That's just, doesn't really need to be, I'll just put it here. So we'll say F, oh, there's actually none. There isn't an option key for this. Silly. It's because I need to change this to be output only, but I'm setting it. So we'll work on that at the end. So next, we will do our third option, which is the update. So when we update, we will first say that our mode is equal to update equals, oh, wait, no, yeah, just update. Um, and then what we want to do is check um, if our record exists, because if we need to update something, it needs to exist. Check if record exists. And so we're going to do another chain. SSN search, chain our social that we entered, and this is going to be CRUD PF. And then if it was found, if, oops, found, and if it was found, we're going to display everything to the screen. So we're going to do the same thing we did here. So I'm just going to copy it. And I'm going to put these all in the same spot. So I'm doing Control Alt and down arrow to move my cursor. Then I'm just pressing delete so that they're all lined up in the spot that I want. So once we put everything to the screen, I'm going to say function equals f6 equals update. And then the next thing that I want to do is put an else so that if it's not found, else message line is equal to record not found, and then we'll turn cancel is equal to on. And after that, we're going to actually have our do while loop. So we're going to loop over our screen. Do while not exit and not cancel and do. And inside here, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to protect our SSN, so protect SSN. So we're going to turn that on. Protect SSN equals on. And then the next thing that we want to do is execute our format because we've already put everything to the screen. Execute format, and then CRUD, what is it, CRUD screen. And then after that, we can see if the user has pressed F6. So if update record is true, then we're going to do our update. So what we'll do is take all of our values from our screen and then we will do our update operation. So we'll say first name is equal to user first name, and then last name. Have I already written this? Because I will just copy it. If so, yes. So I'm just going to take this and copy it. And this is a perfect example of when we should be using subroutines. So at the end, I'll show how we can just easily turn these into subroutines instead of duplicating code, so we can utilize some code reuse, and which is the best way of doing this. We shouldn't be copying, but I'm just kind of showing how to write everything in the main procedure first, and then how it would be helpful to tidy it up by using a subprocedure, or I mean subroutine. So now I'm going to do update CRUD rec. And I need it to be 1 because I renamed it. So once we set everything to the value fields in our physical file, I'm going to do an update. And after we do our update, I'm going to clear our main screen values again. So we're going to do option equals 0, and then SSN search equals 0, and then we will turn cancel is equal to on. So we'll return back to our main screen, and then that should be all we need for our update. So how about we go ahead and test that? Save our file and then create bound RPG program. And we'll go into green screen and test it to see if we can update that. So if I press 3 and then type in our social, so I'm just going to type new at the end. New, change this to an A, and then notice we can't change our social security because that's a protected field. And then we can change this so that I wasn't born today. And then I have we'll insert and say new. I have a new job. And then we'll press F6. And so once we press F6, if we read this, we see that all of our records, or all of our fields have that new value that we just entered. So if I press F12 and leave, we can also test that out by running our SQL statement again and seeing that that's actually the fields in our file. So that was good. Lastly, we have our delete. So what we're going to want to do for this is pretty much very similar to what we've already been doing. We're going to say mode is equal to delete. We're going to do, oh, and I forgot to turn my field. I need to turn this off, protect field. I'll turn this off probably just here. If no, this needs to be turned off outside of our if. So that it always turns off. Let me make sure I've done that. If, so if we're in here and we turn it on, then we turn it off, and then, okay, I've turned it off there as well. Okay, just making sure I'm consistently doing that. And in here, we also want to protect our fields. So I'm going to protect fields equals on, and then protect SSN, protect SSN equals on, and then we will do our loop. So we'll say do while not exit and not cancel and do. And what we're going to do is do another chain to find our record, chain the SSN search and our CRUD PF. And if it was found, we're going to bring it up. Found and if, and then we're going to take our values like this and put them to the screen. Oops. And Control Alt down arrow, space, or I want it to be, yeah, okay. And then once we do that, we can set our function is equal to F7 equals delete. Cool. And then after that, what we can do is execute our format. Execute format and then CRUD screen. And what we really want to do is give the user like a confirmation, like, are you sure you want to delete this? But for now, we're just going to delete if they press F7. We could do like a message and say, are you sure? And then if they press F7 again, then it would delete. But for now, just for simplicity, I'm going to delete if they press F7 just one time. And so if that's the case, then we're going to do our delete operation. Delete, and then we're going to do CRUD PF. This is going to delete the record that we have chained to. And then after that, I'm going to clear main screen values. So we are going to cancel equals on, and then option equals 0. I'm doing this out of order from what I've done previously, but oh well. Equals 0. And then that should be good. And if we haven't found anything, we want a case for that. So we'll have an else that says that message line, no records found. I'll say no record found because we're only looking for one. And then we will turn cancel equals on if we hit that else. And then after this, we are protecting some fields, so we'll want to turn those off. So we're going to take these at the end after our do while, take these and turn them off. Great. Now let's go and compile this. And we have no errors. And let's go ahead and test this now. So I'm going to go to green screen, call our program, and if I'm just going to go through and create a new record. So I'm going to say John Doe A, and we're going to say this, oops, and we'll say 2020 no job, and we'll press enter to see we'll loop over. If we press F5, then we can read this record. And oops, I pressed F3. Let's go back. Let's actually create two records in a row and show that we can do that. Create a record, and we'll just say Adam test last A, and then twos, and then 2001 no job. People don't have any jobs. And then if I do, I'm able to just keep going and adding more records. Zach Van B. This is my twin. 20, 21, 2, 2, and then I have a job, not a Bob. We can enter two in a row, and we can look into our file and see that all those got created. We can see them here, and we can even edit them here as well with SQL if we say for update, but I guess I'll do that in a different video so that I don't go over too much. And I'll say read, I want to read one of these, and then all of our fields are protected and we don't have our option to do anything, so we can press F12 and we can update one of these. So let's just update this. John Doe. John new job. And if we update, and let's go ahead and update another one right after that. New B11 new job. We'll update it, and if we read these, has new by them all. And what was the other one? Was it ones? I think so. I forgot which ones I updated, but if we go look at here, we'll see that we see new by a bunch of these, and that was me updating them. And so let's go and delete some of these records now just to show that. Back in green screen, let's delete. Let's hit F7. Oh, and we forgot to clear that value. So once we delete, we can clear our screen value, our SSN search. So, oh, I just cleared the SSN search. Yeah, it's not ideal. So yeah, once we recompile that, that'll work. But for now, it's all right. We'll delete, and then we'll do twos, and we'll delete. And if we hit F3, we can go and look and see that two of these records are going to be gone. There we go. And we see that those got deleted. So our CRUD operations are working. So I'm going to change this function back to output only because I don't want to allow our user to input them. I just changed that because we had that error at the beginning. I'm going to change this and compile our display file first, and then our RPG program next. Bound RPG, create bound RPG program. And then if I go ahead and call this and go into something like create, yeah, our underline is gone now. That's what I wanted. If I test that with something like delete, okay, our underline is gone there. Sorry about that. And so now I'm going to show how to do a subroutine. Since we have all this duplicated code, we definitely don't want that. So I'm going to create a subroutine for taking our going from take values from screen to file. And so we will begin our subroutine and we'll name it take values from the screen to file. And then we'll end subroutine. And what we'll do, so our screen values are these ones. So values to screen, display values to screen. So we want from the screen to the file. So we want it to end up in the file, so we want these ones. So we'll take these. I'm going to take this and then say send to file. Oops, copied a little funny. So now if we take this screen to file, and we say execute subroutine, end it, it's going to perform the same task, but it's going to do it using our subroutine. So any place that we have that, I'm going to replace it with the subroutine, and we had that right here, so I'm going to put that there. And then I think that's all for that. And so now I'm going to make one for take values from file. I'm just going to say send values to screen from file. Maybe that's not the best way of phrasing it, but that's how I'm going to do it. So we'll begin subroutine and then say file to screen. And then end subroutine. And what I'll do is, so anywhere where user is first, we're going to take this, put it here. Line it up nicely, and I'll take this, copy, and then user. So up here, I'm just going to paste that and say execute subroutine. So basically, when we call this subroutine, it's just going to move control down to execute these lines of code, and then come back up if you're unfamiliar with how a subroutine would work. So now whenever we see user on the left-hand side, we're going to replace it. And then so this is making our main procedure much more easy to look at and work with. So now we just replaced a bunch of duplicated code, and it's made our main procedure a little bit nicer to look at instead of having, all that duplicate stuff. And we could even do that with like some of these clearing our main screen values, but I'll leave you to do some of that tidying up. So let's go ahead and test this one more time just to make sure we didn't break anything. We'll create bound RPG program, and we'll go to green screen. We'll call our program again, and I'm pressing F9 to bring up that previous command when I'm doing the call, when I'm calling my program. So I'm going to create one, and I'm just going to say Zach1, van1. whatever, and then sevens, 2020, 02, 03, programmer, and we're gonna say if I hit enter, it's just gonna loop. If I hit and another important thing is if I hit F12, this isn't gonna add anything. So if I go into here and I look at this, no record was added. We want to make sure it doesn't add a record when we leave. That's an important thing to test. But stack one, middle initial, um, and then if I hit that and we read this, it'll pull everything up. We can see it, very nice. And if we hit update, oops, um, we can just say new, just to show that it's getting a new value. Um, programmer, we'll change this. Nah, who cares? We'll just change this to say new. F6 to update. And then if we read that again, oops, we can see that it's updated. Great. And then if we delete it, everything pulls up and we can do F7 to delete. Great. And if I do something like 1 and then hit F3, we leave the whole program. So great. That is going to be everything that I wanted to cover. So yeah, in the next video, I'm going to make update to this program where I change all the CRUD operations to be performed with SQL. So this is going to be, so I'm going to kind of do a more modern approach to the CRUD operations to this interactive program. So yep, thank you.